So this is the map from when PACHUKA was around, and his southern levels here, these are basically PACHUKA's levels. This was there when Graal first dropped. And PACHUKA is a villain, and he is one of the original gods of the Graal Classic server. Collect your full hearts. You could adventure around the world. You started off in the brother's house, and then you had to go to the Midas realm after you got the cups. To me, that is Graal. Where and how that single player mode gets finished, it has to stay true to it. So Graal had started at the dawn of the internet. The internet hadn't really become public until 1994. I just want you guys to understand why this is important. And it's not just Graal, what you see today. I'm talking about Graal, the true story, as a fantasy legend that really wraps up the players and gets written correctly and finished properly. There's been enough attempts to it, and I was always on those projects. So this is Graal, when it first came out of beta mode, and this is PACHUKA down here. I don't want that to disappear. I know that PACHUKA had it removed, and he did it because Unix mad, because Unix mad is a problem. This is still a part of Graal, and PACHUKA is a legendary villain of the story. This right here is Graal Classic. My world took over PACHUKA's. I remember at the time, thinking, I just took PACHUKA's place. And that was a big deal, because when Graal first came out of beta mode, PACHUKA ruled Graal. He is Graal Classic. The oldest levels had dropped right before I joined. You quested around, you collected the cups, and you got to the Golden Realm. It needs to live on. It can't go away. So what I'm picturing here, this is the noob head. It's always going to be the noob head, even today. It's Funk Cyan, obviously. But this is Nick and Gallen's headset. And this is the Mandy headset. And when you see these headsets, we know who these people are. These are people, they're characters. These aren't just heads. This is, I think King Klops might have wore that actually. This was Alexander Yoshi. This one was never really popularized that I can remember by any figures in the lore. Neither was she. That's Spider. Spider, of course, we know who that is. That's Spider. This is nobody really from the central lore. Vangel, this is Vangel. This was Azrael. So this is the Azrael headset, who is the god of death. This was Unix Matt wore this headset. This was Unix Matt's headset. This was mine. This was Stefan. And this was PACHUKA. When 1.2 had dropped, the first time players could have their own custom headset, the first one was Captain USA, and then there was the Antago headset. Me and Captain USA were the first original personal headsets. There's that. So these ones are just recolors. So these right here don't even really count. So that means something, you guys. And Unix Matt didn't know how to do it. He had thought by allowing people to just start uploading more and more and more of their own graphics that over time he could start to monetize it. And so Graal had stopped becoming a story. Suddenly the headsets started to not mean something. Because for so long we used to just use these characters, and it was up to head 22. What was it, 1.2? Like I said, I ended up getting mine also thrown into at the front of the list of original headsets. There was a time when these all meant something because they were the only thing you had. And especially in 1.1, when you had to save your files to your computer, you were committed to it. Your headset was your headset. You couldn't change it. The heads that we wore, they were our characters. I wore the Steve head all the time. That was my account. I had it saved with that headset, and you couldn't change it. So the stories we were creating at the very first story had dropped for Graal out of beta mode. You collect the grails, and then we went through and we adventured and we created a story. We created a community of lore around that concept. It was no longer this Zelda ripoff. It was like a real game, a real epic story. Going back to the original stuff, if you look at, this is 1998. So you can see in 1998, Stefan is talking about creating the single player mode for Graal. So he's talking about how he's adding a few new things. You can get bombs and super bombs. You can lift and carry a second player. He's working on baddies. Oh, it would be released with one half of the story, but with full player multiplayer features. So there is a story there that has been lost. And you could collect the 4 cups. You could collect the 4 little grails. PACHUKA had a poem to get the Black Grail. So this is the Black Grail. And this came out on May 5th of 1999. Around this time, too, Bruges had came out with the Pegasus boots. And you guys, I was a Bruges core member. I was a secret Bruges core member. And I had turned them into a bunch of different boots, and I had tweaked them and edited them and changed them. And then I had Ace, who was coding the Trident. Me and Pachuka were the biggest rivals. So you can see Pachuka put a hit out on Lord Crazy and myself, and Lord Crazy was my friend in real life. He didn't know that. He was ruthless. The community was ruthless. Living in it was a war zone, a real war zone. So anyway, he dropped this, which was apparently a wild goose chase. He's so mischievous. He really is. Because he was the god of mischief. And that's lore that I won't ever let go. This is Grawl and it needs to be part of the story. So I'm going to keep putting it in there. He was so mischievous and I knew it and he knew it. Because the shit that he did to me, like I was his sworn enemy and I was the big fuck you he gave in the end too. I don't know why he hated Nick. You know, it was me, Nick, and Unix Man he gave the big fuck you to. It was a different world back then. It was uncensored. There weren't accounts. You couldn't get banned. There wasn't social media. And you had to know how to make websites. And you had to have fortitude to exist as something more than just a player. So like it was a total freaking war zone. Like at the time, it was still very much medieval, a lot like Zelda still. And so the power that Pachuka had was not the same that you hear about today. He was into bondage and he did these dirty photos and it was gross. Like he had this demonic gothic emo. He was almost like emo before emo was a thing. This gothic emo bondage control the gamers and the gaming community. And he had his hand in multiple gaming communities. He was running cults. A lot of that changed like around 1.3, I would say. I think what happened was Unix Mad wanted to make money, so he tried to stop a lot of that from happening purely for money's sake. So over time, it started to change. But Pachuka was not, I don't know, like you don't understand. He was worshipped. He was like a cult leader in multiple gaming communities. It was from the ROM community. It's so weird. Anyway, so let me just tell you, nobody would come into this IRC channel. It was just very few of us. And there was a small clique of us. He was in there at nights, and so was Galen. And you'd pop up in there. You'd try to get influence. You'd be like, hey, I want to get this in here. I want to do this. Pachuka would just make it impossible because he was a pedophile and he would threaten you and he was violent and psychotic. He had a website and I forget what it was called, but it was supposed to be the biggest cheaters of all. And so I went and I joined it. I was like, I want to join. I messaged him. I said, I want to join the biggest cheaters of all. I forget the name of the guild, but they had like a blue background, black text, and he stuck it up as a dummy site to catch cheaters. And he messaged me back and he was in the IRC channel. He's like, Antago, you stupid fuck. He's like, that's my fucking dummy website to catch idiots like you. And I had wrote him this long email and it was supposed to be this really big, legitimate cheating clan or whatever it was. And we were going to wreak all this havoc. And Pachuka, like, is just sitting there freaking reaming me out, telling me I'm a piece of shit. So anyways, he dropped this stupid poem. This is so fucking funny. He's dropped this stupid poem and like, you could never get the Black Grail. It was a wild goose chase. It was a wild goose chase, he says. And I remember finding in the levels, like the Black Grail, and it was just like in this one level somewhere, and you could never get to that level, but you could search for it in the files contents on your local computer. I had his old files for a while. I don't know how I got them. I think there might even been something in there that said it was a placeholder and you couldn't see the script for what it was doing or something, or the level just wasn't on the server anymore. I remember just whatever it was like, you couldn't get to it. And so there was this big quest. He had these websites, another wild goose chase of his, just like that fake cheating website and all this other stuff he was doing. And he had this website called the Black Grail, and like everybody wanted to find it so that he could have this evil NPC that he had that did all of these ungodly powers. And he wrote this big stupid poem for it. And it's not bad. It's not a bad poem. He wrote this big stupid poem for it. And dropped it on May 5th, 1999. And he dropped it on May 5th of 1999, dude. It's so funny. The Ode to the Black Grail. To control the evil this cup contains, first bring the force that causes PK's pain. Take this symbol and start to stray to the south where red eyes play. While exploring, don't burn your feet on the odd metal in the desert heat. A man who would normally attack sits and relaxes until you get on his back, but he will not bother to start a fight if he's given earth as black as night. After that, you want to fade to a place where news is made. In the hills, you will discover a hidden grove clouded by dark cover. A blast of bomb should be good enough to light a path of brightness in the night. After that, be sure to stroll past a a place of the future forgotten by the past. After that it will seem you are a holy man, white and clean. Lift your cup up in the air, throw it on the ground for all to stare. After this you may want to run and hide, for this Graal sucks the souls of all nearby. And it did. It did. He would lift it up and throw it, and it would just fucking kill everybody. It was crazy. And look at them always talking about trying to get rid of cheaters, and they were the biggest cheaters. So there was this poem. And so, yeah, I did want to capture that, and then there was an orange grail. I don't want to go too much into everything, but I do consider Destiny to be a part of the southern map, and I think that PACHUKA's level should technically come above Destiny. So I said before that I wanted these to transform, and like I said, I just think that I don't feel like it translates well to make Destiny transform into PACHUKA's levels, even though like it overlays it a little bit. Like if you look at here, you can see it like overlays it quite well, right? I think it would just work better beneath PACHUKA's levels. I took the Pegasus boots, and Bruges gave me permission to do the gravity boots, which was a twist on his script. And so I changed the Pegasus boots into the gravity boots, and I gave it some different functionality. And then I created a poem for the gravity boots, and I made it this massive epic quest, and you could actually get the boots. So the difference between PACHUKA's and the Black Grail is you could not get the Black Grail. This dude is so sneaky. And so I wrote a poem to get the gravity boots, and you could actually get them. Nobody could figure it out. What happened was people followed me around one day when I was bug testing it, and they just like wrote down the different locations and things I did, and they passed it along to other people and like figured out how to get the boots. I had to bug test it in the online mode. And so people were just following me around everywhere I would go. Like I would have massive crowds of people just following me, but they wouldn't go away. That's how they ended up finding the gravity boots. But it was difficult. I made it really impossible. And unlike PACHUKA's, you could actually get the boots. But the gravity boots were basically originally the Pegasus boots, which was a Bruges core item. I turned them into the gravity boots. And the gravity boots were supposed to, they ended up being a part of Destiny and stuff. And you were supposed to go through this big quest. And then by the time I got hosted, the boots ended up becoming like an advertisement to go to my house to get to Destiny as a separate game. So the gravity boots got removed. They never really had a use either. The only way that I made them useful was they slowed you down, and when you wore them, you had infinite health. But like you would have, I think, one half of a yin yang left of health, but you could walk really slow and you were immortal. So the gravity boots were a very rare and badass item. They were basically almost as cool as the Black Grail, just in a different way. But in the end, the gravity boots, were ultimately designed to be a part of Destiny, obviously, and then the underwater world. And I'm picturing the map going back to 1.1. I'm just going to start adding things in there. I want to have PACHUKA's, I believe this was PACHUKA's castle, and this was his rainbow palace. So I'm thinking ideally what I would like is to have PACHUKA as a villain in the palace. So you'll have like a gravity tower, and then you'll have Castle Chaos, which is Galen's castle, and then you'll have Freak's Temple of Insanity, and then you'll have PACHUKA's Rainbow Palace. And then I'm going to start adding some stuff for Azrael around here where the waterfall drops off. I think I want us to start to go down into an underworld. So you do go down and through like old jungle leaves and stuff, but then I also want there to be down into the caverns of an actual like Hades type situation, like a deep underworld, or dark and shadowy, glowing like blues and greens. On the ground is black soot, and there's things glowing and geysers and things, and it's filled with skeletons and spooky stuff and graves and tombstones of fallen players and things like that. And I want to have Azrael's fortress down here. So Azrael is going to have a fortress down below Glowtica. Now that's never been created. That will be new. All this stuff, this is historical. I don't want to go too off topic and stuff. I did go ahead and I edited the cat head. This needs some more work, but I tried to make it more of the old 1.1 style because I really like that style instead of the style that it was before, which was my post Raw 2001 style. This is what it was originally. This cat head here, if you look, you can see it's kind of cute and I guess a little more fun and playful. And I like the lighting on it. But then I thought that like maybe this style here matches the original Graal style a little bit better and looks more like an item. I compiled some of these grails. We'll talk more about these in the next video. The orange grail was originally a part of, I never got to flesh it out because of the way things went down. But the Orange Grail existed. The Black Grail existed. This was PACHUKA's, and it was hidden, and he had it. And the White Grail existed in the church. You could go into the church and you could get the White Grail, and the White Grail would let you like heal people. You became a healer. You couldn't kill people. Your sword became a healer. So the only Grail here that didn't exist was the Purple Grail. These three existed. These actually existed in Graal Classic. So these are lore. This is actual lore. Like I said, I'm just going to go through and keep the true lore, and I'm going to start bringing back, the different players who need to be in here, who have earned a right to be in here, finding and preserving items or things that should have been items. So I probably need to edit this armor graphic to make it more of the Graal style. Like this head looks a little bit better. It needs some work, but it looks a little bit more like the Graal 1.1 style. This needs to be edited to look more like the Graal 1.1 style, and this needs to be redone. And I really love the idea of its horns stabbing itself in the eyes. Their horns start to grow into their eye sockets and they become blind. I don't know, but it's spooky and creepy. So this needs fixed up. This is about as old as Graal Classic. I think I never got to put it in there, but it belongs in there. This was part of Graal Classic, so was the Trident. I don't like that graphic. When I created it or whatever, I was trying to make it look 3D, and so you can see that a lot of my graphics didn't really have a consistent style because I was a kid practicing art, and so it was a lot more difficult to get stuff that matched a consistent style. I'm going to write the Graal single player mode, and I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to keep the stories where they need to be. We're going to stay true to it. We're not going to just forge stuff together. So this is Glowtica is a part of the original Graal map. As you can see here, this is from around 2001, but this was actually the summer of 2000 is what it was. This is mid 2000 map. So this is legacy, and we're going to keep the legacy, and we're going to flesh it the fuck out with or without Stefan. And we're going to make it what it needs to be and that's as official as it's ever going to get. The God of Mischief's world, I want to bring these back and encapsulate and make sure they don't disappear. And I want to bring the underworld down. So I want the southern map to be, you go through here and you have to solve it, and you can't get beyond the underwater world until you defeat it. You have to quest and quest and quest and defeat all these gods. And then I want you to go down here into the underworld, and there'll be Azrael, the god of death, will be down here. And I think the ultimate boss needs to end up being Bomber or Stefan and Unix Mad. We'll figure those out, and we'll talk about that another time, and we'll talk about the Azrael thing another time. But we're going to bring everything back, and we're going to make it real as fuck. So anyway, some of you have already heard all this stuff. I don't know, I just wanted you to hear it again, and some of you other people to hear it, because the truth is that I don't think people realize Unix Mad's lying about who owns what and who has the right to tell what story. He's a total thief. And he wasn't, and by the way, Unix Mad was never part of the community. So like he doesn't understand it. He doesn't even get it. Graal is a game about collecting chalices. And the original chalices, you would collect the red one, you would collect the blue one, you would collect the green one, you would collect the yellow one. So when Graal first came out of beta mode, Graal is a story, it's a game. And there was the Brothers House, the different players and the characters in the story and the way that we lived our lives and the things we've been up to since then. It means something. You know what I mean? It's inspiration. It's divine inspiration, quote unquote, told in real time. And it could be divinely inspired. Like it's historical stuff. Those 4 grails, which was like the red, the blue, the green, and the yellow one, they were what you needed to get to the Golden Midas realm. What I'm picturing here is there were 4 other grails. There was the Orange Grail. So this is the God of Gravity Grail. This was in Destiny, so like it got filtered out throughout the years, but this is Legacy. This is the God of Mischief Grail, the Black Grail, it was called. This is Legacy. This was there. This is the White Grail, and this was the Purity Grail of the church. So like we can tie this into Vangel. Vangel loved the White Grail. He's so funny. So this can be tied into Vangel, and I want to flesh out Vangel's character in the world. I want to have his story there because there's so much relating to Destiny and relating to Classic and relating to Bruges and the evolution of the Graal Classic story. I want to turn into the mythological fables that it is and put it into the character's dialogue and into the story. There's going to be Vangel and there's going to be the White Grail. I am trying to tell the story right, and I'm trying to get rid of junk. There's not going to be a burger fucking joint. There's not going to be a fucking Graal bank anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to keep the lore of the players and the Graal gods, the items and the original style and things that are part of Legacy and things that needed to be there, and the drama and the backstabbing, the betrayal and the stories of the players in the community, and just turn it into creative content and make it medieval and make it polished and create the concept for it. Just like there's a concept for Zelda that keeps getting retold every time. Just like there's a concept for Mario that keeps getting retold every game, and it's just recycled over and over and over again. I want to finish the story of Graal Classic because it was never finished. Stefan wanted me to finish it, and instead he just quickly stole my stuff so he could start making money. So what I'm saying to you guys, I'm not saying that to get onto a topic about being robbed. I don't care right now to talk about that. I've made other videos. But it's important to bring that back up because the picture I want you guys to understand in your head is that there is a Graal fantasy lore, a concept, just like there's a concept for Zelda and Mario, that needs to be cleaned up and finally finished and told properly. A lot of people don't understand, and I would have told it a lot sooner, except it made it impossible for me. Now I'm like trauma dumping to you guys, but I think it's time. There's so much inspiration and so much, you know, I think with the right amount of taste, with the right amount of editing, this can be done. And so that's what I've already done with Glowtica. You can see I've started doing that. And this map means something. And so, where was I here? This map means something. This world means something. Because this map was the official map at the time. Like Graal Classic was completed when Graal 2001 dropped, and now you can see it. And what I want to do is I want to fix up the map. And I want to get it back to its roots. And I want to take things from Graal Classic and put them back where they need to be, which is in the original story. And I want to continue this fucking story, and I want to get PACHUKA's fucking levels back, and I want to have him as a massive villain in big quests. And you have to defeat the god of mischief. And I want you to have to defeat the different gods or befriend the right gods and just explore the world. And this is who the characters are, right? And we take players and we take stories and we put them in here and we make it a game again, and we fix it and we fix it up and we write it down and we get it done in concept. And we get rid of all the junk that doesn't need to be there and that doesn't fit the theme. That's not medieval enough. That's not, fitting the story enough. That's in bad taste. And we just like keep the legacy of what it is. Destiny fucking destroyed PACHUKA. That's a fact of history. And PACHUKA was unstoppable. That will be always historical, and everybody remembers him and still thinks about him. Of course, Captain USA is talking about PACHUKA still. I know why he's talking about PACHUKA. Of course he is. I know why he is. Because PACHUKA was legendary. He was a fucking great game designer. PACHUKA was a devil, and he can't come back around again because of what he did. But his game content and his legend, his role in history and the lore is irreplaceable, and it's still here. And the war between me and him is real, and the way that he was supposed to be Graal Classic and I replaced him, that happened. And this needs to be done right. Destiny and Glowtica needs fleshed out, and I've already been doing that, finally. And there's going to be this whole underworld, and there's going to be this mega boss, which is Unix Mad. And nobody else can do that. So I am going to continue to do that. One thing that I found interesting here was, the orange grail, the black grail, and the white grail. I am finding an interesting correlation here, which is that there were 3 grails before, but it took 4 to get to the Midas realm. There were 3 grails, secret grail. Well, they were basically secret grails. So the orange grail was the secret one of Destiny. The black grail was PACHUKA's secret personal grail with his wild goose chase quest, his poem to get it, which isn't real. Because he's so mischievous, which it fits his character, it fits his lore very well. And so you can turn that into game content in a very interesting way too. The white grail was a part of the church, and not everybody knew that it was there. You had to go to the church to find it. And this came a little bit later, than the original grails. And when you collected it, you could no longer kill players. You were suddenly a priest, and your what was it? Your sword was a healing sword. And so from then on out, you couldn't defend yourself, but you could heal people. So these are a thing. What I'm finding fascinating here is it took 4 to get to the Midas realm, and there was 3 legacies, alternate grails, but where was the 4th one? So now there is a 4th grail called the purple grail. So what do these 4 grails do for you? What if you can collect them, right? We go into story mode, and a part of the story mode, we take this idea of PACHUKA and his weird poem, and we bring this back, and we tie it into his rainbow palace with the god of mischief, and we make the rainbow palace something epic and crazy. let's make a rainbow palace epic and crazy. And um I th- I'm thinking Pachuca can have two castles. Well, I don't know. So I like the idea of like the gravity tower being a tower, Gallons being a castle, Freaks being a temple, Pachuca's being a palace, Azrael's is a fortress. So they're all different, you know what I mean? They're not all castles or all towers or something. You have a palace, a tower, a castle, a temple, and a fortress. And then we also have these other gods. So there's Mandy. So like Mandy's could be, I don't know, a church. And then there's ultimate weapons, and his can be something different. And you just like start creating these different abstracts centered around the mythology of these characters, and you bring in stuff from who they are, and you start making it a part of the real story again. And every time this story gets told, like, you know, in the future, these characters are always a part of it, just like in Zelda. In Zelda, they always have like the Gerudos, right? They always have the Gerudos, and they always have the Gorons, and they always have Zelda, and they always have Link, and they always have Ganon, and they always have the little Zorba or Zoris or whatever Zorbas, Zorbies. I forget what they're called. All of a sudden, for some reason, the little fish creatures, they're always there, all of them, and they keep bringing back the same characters. You know what I mean? So what I'm doing here is I'm telling you, like, I'm gonna clean it the fuck up, and I'm gonna finish what I goddamn started.